This is Mr. Physiak.
Fred Novak
yes,
on
but-
behalf.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say perhaps we should do Annette Ortiz first, only because I have officers here waiting to be relieved.
Well, Ms. Ortiz is not being held, right?
That's
Correct.
Okay, sorry.
Mr. Physiak is, and it's important that we get Mr. Physiak's case resolved.
I would concur.
All right, let's call it
If I have a choice between two trials, I'm going to try the one where the individual's already been incarcerated for almost, 4 months.
Okay, let's call Jason Physiak's case then. State would call Matthew Branch.
Mr. Physiak enters a plea of not guilty, Your Honor.
Waives his right to trial by jury.
Sir, do you freely and voluntarily waive the right to a jury trial today? You have a right of appeal if you don't today, but in order to be tried here in front of Judge Thomas, you have to be willing to not be tried in front of a jury today.
Yes, I mean, we didn't prepare so much for the case because we didn't think it would go to trial, but I think that we're sufficient to proceed now.
So you're waiving your right to a trial by jury? Because I could pass the case on to the circuit court if you would like a jury trial.
No.
All right. Be seated.
These officers were referred on the family service. That's what the whole thing.
That's it.
State your name for the record, please.
Matthew Branch.
Mr. Branch, are you acquainted with the defendant, Jason Physiak?
Yes, he was Julie's ex.
Okay, when you say Julie, can you explain who that is?
Julia Jaroszewski, it was a friend of mine.
And you see Mr. Physiak in the courtroom today?
Yes, I do.
And is he seated at defense counsel table with his defense counsel?
Yes, I do.
Now, you had the opportunity to be a witness to some incidents regarding Mr. Physiak and Ms. Jaroszewski, is that correct?
Yes.
Can you describe those incidents for the court, please?
On 10/10, he came in the house. Said he wanted cigarette butts and things to collect. He came in. He turned the volume very loud. He was very drunk. Julie went to come in to turn the radio down because the neighbors downstairs have already asked us to turn the radio down. He would push Julie to turn the radio back up and started assaulting her, pushing, hitting, kicking her.
Okay, how many times did he do those acts?
Multiple. It lasted for 15 minutes.
Okay, and what was Julie doing during that time?
Trying to get him to turn the radio down and trying to defend herself.
And where were you when these acts were going on?
I was there in the living room.
Were you able to clearly see what was going on?
Yes, I was.
Then what happened after that?
After that, Julia eventually was able to get to, she had a thing for her cats to climb up on, and had a ladder on it. She grabbed for it, and when she grabbed for that and turned around, Mr. Physiak ran out of the house. And then
Okay, let me just a minute. As a result of those incidents that you just described, were you able to see any bruises on Julie?
she had some bumps and bruises, yes.
And that was that they were not present on her before Mr. Physiak touched her? And now there's another incident that you wanted to testify to?
On 10/7, I was in the living room. They were in the kitchen talking, and I was able to hear Julie fall and scream and yell. When I came into the room, she said that he hit her and he was trying to...
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
He forcibly grabbed her up.
And you saw her grab, you saw Mr. Fiziak grab her?
Seeing him grab her and pull her up, so making it look like he didn't push her down or hit her.
Was there anything else that occurred on that day?
No.
Now, you gave the dates that these happened. Can you say what year they happened? I don't believe you said the year.
2014.
So both of these events that you described occurred in October of 2014?
Yes.
Were there any other incidents that you observed between Ms. Jarzynski and Mr. Fiziak?
There were multiple incidents in between that, but they're not listed there.
I would object to that, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Were there other incidents that you had the opportunity to observe between Mr. Fiziak and Ms. Jarzynski?
Objection, relevance.
What is the relevance, other than the dates he's in charge?
Oh, sorry.
don't answer.
No,
answer.
don't answer.
Wait. Irrelevant.
Just to show a course of conduct of the
Objection
case.
sustained.
Yeah.
Sir,
No,
the
no.
objection was sustained.
No further questions.
Mr. Swellflag?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Branch, prior to today's trial, you reviewed Ms. Jarzynski's application for statement of charges, didn't you?
I've seen it, yes.
You've read it?
Yes.
And when Mr. Fiziak was dating Ms. Jarzynski, you had attempts to try to have romantic relations with her, didn't you?
No.
Now, Mr. Branch, you knew Ms. Jarzynski well?
Yeah, she was a good friend.
So how long would you say you've known her?
6 months. It's about a year.
And you've known that it's very characteristic of her to record conversations, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you know it's very characteristic of her to take pictures of everything, isn't it?
Yes.
But she took no pictures of her injuries in this case, did she?
I do not have the phone, so I cannot say. I don't have the phone.
Your Honor, I'm going to ask that certain people in the audience remain silent during the trial.
Please.
If I had access to her phone, yes, I'd get it, but she's no longer here.
So you have no knowledge. As far as you know, she didn't take any pictures.
I believe she did.
So I'm not asking you what you believe. Do you have any knowledge that she took any pictures of this case?
Yeah.
You saw photos?
She told me she had them, yes. I did not look at them.
Okay, so you didn't see them. Now regarding October 7th, just so I'm clear, what you witnessed was hearing sound
Of her screaming, yes.
of a scream and a sound of her falling, isn't that right?
Yes.
And you feel you heard her fall, but you didn't see her fall,
I
correct?
did not see her at all at that time, no.
All right. And what you did see was Mr. Physiok pulling her up from the ground, correct?
Correct.
Court indulgence. On October 7th, what room did you see Mr. Physiok pull Ms. Jarosinski up from the ground?
That was the kitchen.
So, according to you, Mr. Physiok was pushing, hitting, and kicking her for 15 minutes. You didn't call the police, did you?
No.
You didn't try to intervene, did you?
Yes, I did.
Yes,
What
I
did
did.
you do exactly?
I went up to stop him and she waved me down every time.
So she waved you down every time.
You said no, and I said yes.
I believe that's an understatement.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Can you redirect?
Yes. Mr. Branch, with regard to the incident that you just testified to where you saw Mr. Physiok pushing and hitting and kicking Julie, and you said you went up to stop him and she waved you down.
Yes.
Has that ever happened before when she has waved you away?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Yeah, she's done that.
It was sustained, sir.
Can't answer
Don't
the
answer.
question.
If I sustain the objection, that means you're not supposed to answer.
What did you do after she waved you away?
I would sit back down and just really watch.
The incident on October 7th, you testified that you heard Julie fall in the kitchen. Before she fell, did you hear anything else coming from the kitchen?
They were talking quite loudly, screaming.
So you characterize it as screaming?
Yeah.
Did you go into the kitchen as soon as you heard Julie fall on that day?
Yes.
And that's when you saw her laying on the floor?
Yes.
On the day that you testified that you heard, I believe it was On the day where you said you saw Mr. Fiziak pushing, hitting, and kicking Julie, were you able to see, were you able to observe Mr. Fiziak's face when he was doing that?
Yes.
And what did his face look like to you?
He was in anger.
Had you seen him angry before, Mr.
Yes.
Fiziak? So you were able to recognize what that looked
Yes.
like?
Is that it?
No further questions.
What did Ms. Jarozinski's facial expression indicate to you?
Fear.
She was intoxicated at the time, wasn't she?
No.
Are we beyond the scope of both cross and direct? Are we beyond the scope, Mr. Blofeld? Okay.
Just a
Any other
smidge,
questions?
Your Honor.
Any other questions?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Branch. Yes, any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Blofeld?
Your Honor, I would make a motion for judgment of acquittal at this time due to insufficient evidence that there was a lack of consent with these incidents, even when viewed most favorably in the light most favorable to the state. And I would ask the court to grant a motion of judgment of acquittal.
It's denied.
You will have to answer all of my questions that the judge allows, and all of her questions that the judge allows. Court's indulgence. Your Honor, the defense calls Mr. Fiziak to the stand.
Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear to affirm all the testimony you give, the testimony you best give, the whole truth and the truth.
Sir, can you state your name and county of residence, please?
Jason Bradley Fiziak, Washington County.
Do you know the victim in this case, Ms. Jarosinski?
Yeah, yes.
How do you know her?
She was my, my ex-girlfriend. I was with her for a year and a half, 2 years, and she recently deceased.
Let's go to the month of October, specifically October 7th of last year. Do you remember that day?
I can't recall it in the calendar kind of way, but
Let me ask you this. You heard testimony about an incident that occurred in the kitchen in Ms. Jarosinski's apartment. Do you remember that incident?
yes, I do.
Okay, what can you tell us about that?
That was the incident where we were in the kitchen, I believe.
Correct.
I can't remember what the argument was or what she was yelling at me for. But her legs gave out on her and she fell to the floor. She had lupus and it was a frequent occurrence. You know, her legs would give out on her and she'd fall down. And she fell down and I picked her up, and that's when Matt came running in the room right when I picked her up.
Sir, let me draw your attention to 3 days later, October 10th. You heard testimony about an incident that occurred with you entering and turning up the volume on a stereo. Do you remember that incident?
Yeah.
What can you tell us, if anything, about that incident?
Well, that night, when I come over, Julie, Julie's a drinker. She would drink every day. She drank from the minute she woke up, and she took her morning
Objection.
meds,
Relevance.
and she took her morning.
Sustained, it's not a response.
Without further elaborating on that, sir, tell us what happened on the 10th.
Okay, well, I came over to Julie's house, and Matt Branch was there. He was sitting on the couch the whole time I was there. And I turned the radio up. Well, the radio, I believe the radio was on, and I just turned it up a little bit. I didn't think it was too loud, but Julie did, and she turned it down, and I turned it back up a couple minutes later. But then, Julie kind of got physical with me, and this is the thing we commonly do, it just kind of like play around sexually, there was physical activity, but it wasn't abusive. It was consensual, it was sexual, and I could see by looking Matt's eyes, he was a little jealous at that time, because he had been trying to get with Julie, just as all of our other friends. He kept bringing gifts over, and I don't know if that occasion, if he had brought over wine or if that was
Mr. Lopez,
or not.
back on track.
Mr. Fysiak, going back to the activity that you just described as consensual, non-abusive activity, would any of that activity look like hitting or slapping or anything like that?
Well, it's kind of just like playfulness. Like, she would slap at me sometimes, and she would slap at me, and I would like brush it off, and we would both kind of move together, and I'd pull her into me, and she'd smile. But I it was almost like a form of dance, you know, like she knew how I would move and I knew how she would move, and we just kind of moved together. I mean, we were just playful like that.
At any point, did you playfully or otherwise move your leg in her direction?
No.
At any point, did this activity you're describing involve you two pushing each other?
Not really. I mean, everything we do, we move together.
Do you recall Mr. Branch getting up to try and intervene in the activity?
I think I recall him standing up maybe one time. I'm not aware that it was to intervene with anything, but I mean, for the most part, he sat there on the couch all night.
And this interaction between you and Ms. Jarosinski, what time estimate would you place on it as far as how long it lasted?
I don't know. I mean, I was there for probably a half hour in total. And you mean the physical part of it?
Yes.
It was just kind of like off and on, like sporadic over the duration that I was there.
At any point, did she tell you to stop?
No.
At any point, did she indicate you were hurting her?
No. She smiled.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Mr. Fiziak, you testified that on October 10th you came over to Julie's house, and as soon as you got in the house you turned the radio up. Is that what you did?
I'd only been there a minute or two, and yeah.
And then Julie turned it down.
I've heard this from two different sources.
Weren't you upset that she turned it down as soon as you turned the radio
Not
back
really.
up?
I mean, I was just like, we were both smiling.
Well, if she was telling you, didn't she tell you at the time that the neighbors had complained about the sound? That's why she turned the radio down?
No, I was, see, that's the thing, like, I was always the one getting her to turn things down. Like, I mean, the radio wasn't even loud that night. I turned it up, but that doesn't mean that I turned it loud. And she was hard of hearing, and I was the one that always, like, was the noise police, if anybody was, you know? And I don't know why she wrote that, but that wasn't the case. I mean, I didn't turn it up to where it was like too much for the people downstairs, and plus it wasn't that late, if I recall correctly.
And then, well, then you testified that you would play around in a sexual manner with her. Is that something that you would do if there was a witness there, like Mr. Branch was there, and you were testifying that you're still going to be doing that type of behavior with her?
Yeah, because we didn't get like too much. I mean, we would get a little more sexual if we were in the bedroom, but yeah, I mean, we did that. It was a common thing.
So didn't you actually push her away from the radio when you were trying to turn the volume up?
No. We both had, I mean, there's no way that I could. The way the arrangement was, you know, you'd have to like lean over the tables just to get to the radio. Like, there's no way to even push someone. That doesn't
So
really make
if all
sense.
this is it your testimony that all this activity then that occurred on October 10th was consensual between you and Julie?
Yes.
But yet she filed a complaint against you.
That was only because I had started seeing another girl. When she found out that I was seeing another girl, she went and filed all these bogus charges because she got jealous or whatever. And it wasn't until I started seeing another girl that she said all this stuff.
And yet her friend didn't think this activity was consensual that night? Either?
Well,
Objection.
That's
How is that the
complicated.
witness's
Sustained.
knowledge?
Sustained.
Now, on October 7th, when you and Julie were in the kitchen, you were arguing, isn't that correct?
I guess you could say we were arguing, but I mean, really it was just her arguing, yelling at me. I mean,
So you're saying you didn't respond at all to her?
I'm not saying that I didn't respond, but I was just trying to keep things calm. She had, like, she was an emotional roller coaster. Like, I mean, she...
Objection, I object to him continuing to testify to that.
Sustained.
And both of these incidents occurred while you were in Julie's house, is that correct?
Yeah. Yep.
And that was where she resided in Hagerstown, Maryland, in Washington County, Maryland, correct?
Yes.
Now, when she fell to the floor, according to your testimony, she fell to the floor as a result, right after you argued? Is that your testimony?
Like in the middle of us arguing.
And that had nothing to do with you touching her at all?
No, all of her friends, all of the ones that are here present in court know that she commonly fell down
Objection, I'm going to
all the time.
object to him testifying to what somebody else knows. No further questions.
No recross
All right.
or
Thank you.
redirect.
Thank you, Mr. Physiak. May I have a seat next to Mr. Blowback? Any other witnesses, Mr. Blowback?
No other witnesses, Your Honor.
Any rebuttal?
No, Your Honor.
Argument? Argument?
I'll rebut now.
Your Honor, briefly, as to the count 5, which is, I believe, the one that refers to the 7th of October, I would suggest to the court that insufficient evidence of any kind of deliberate, unconsented to, harmful, or offensive touching occurred at all. So I would definitely ask, well, I could also renew my motions for judgment of acquittal. At this point, I'm just going to dispense with that, Your Honor, and just finish arguing. I would say that there's not only is there reasonable doubt, but simply insufficient evidence as to an assault on October 7th, which was the incident referred to in the kitchen. So I would ask for a not guilty for that. Now, as to the October 10th count, I would submit to the court that sufficient evidence has been presented such that a trier of fact could conclude that there is reasonable doubt that the state has not met its burden of proving beyond a reasonable doubt that in fact there was an offensive, unconsented to, or harmful touching. I would note the lack of any kind of physical evidence as to what, if taken at the state's evidence, would be a 15-minute beat down, and no evidence of any hospitalization or police intervention, which I think clouds the credibility and reliability of the state's witness testimony, that something that presumably savage went unaddressed. I think that clouds credibility, and I think that the defense testimony was thorough and candid and credible in terms of the relationship and characteristics between Ms. Jarosinski and Mr. Fiziak, such that at the very minimum, reasonable doubt was raised, and I would ask the court to find Mr. Fiziak not guilty on that count as well.
The state submits that the testimony of Mr. Fiziak is not credible. It's obviously self-serving, and he has his own agenda as far as what he's trying to show here. The testimony of an independent witness who very clearly and unequivocally testified to what he saw that occurred on October 10th in the decedent's apartment. And certainly this witness saw what he saw, that he saw the physical beating of Julie Jarosinski by Mr. Fiziak. And that's what happened. I mean, Mr. Fiziak's explanation of it is that, well, it was consensual, it was something they did, it was sexual. That was not something that, first of all, it's not believable and not credible that he would be doing something like that in front of a witness in his girlfriend's own apartment. And second of all, it's certainly a self-serving statement to come here today and use that to justify his actions at that time, when clearly the witness testified that there was some type of a disagreement about turning up the radio or turning the radio down. And it is believable and it is convincing that the defendant was angry, and he acted out on that anger, that he was angry at his girlfriend for turning down the volume of the radio after he turned it up, and he reacted and the evidence is there from the independent witness who saw him strike her in anger, punch, kick her in anger, and push her. As far as the incident on October 10th, the witness testified he didn't see the defendant actually throw Julie down on the floor, but he did say that they were arguing before that. He could hear them arguing in the kitchen. And when he came in to the kitchen...
October 7th.
I'm sorry.
That's correct,
You
Your
got
Honor.
the dates back.
I'm sorry, on October, yes, that was October 7th,
Right.
yes. When he came in, she was on the floor, and they continued to argue.
All right, I find him guilty both counts. Record.
The record, 2014 disorderly conduct, 2013 trespass of private property, 2013 resisting arrest, 2013 disorderly conduct, 2 violations, 2012 disorderly conduct, 2007 second degree assault, 2 counts, 2006 trespass, 2005 second degree assault, 2005 violating the protective order, 2003 second degree assault. Actually, that was a stat. That was a stat doc on that count. And a malicious destruction of property, that was statted also.
Anything else, Ms. Putney? State's got a recommendation?
Your Honor, the recommendation of the state would be that the harshest sentence that's available. This defendant has committed multiple offenses, and he continued to commit offenses against this person who's no longer here to defend herself. And we would request that whatever can be done, certainly he deserves jail time for this.
Mr. Glovac.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, Mr. Fiziak was the victim of an attack in Ocean City, which resulted in his awaking in Baltimore shock trauma and having a traumatic brain injury. It has affected his hearing in one ear, and that still has not improved. Is that correct, sir? He has in the past sought counseling and services, most notably through Way Station here in Hagerstown, in which he was evaluated and sought assistance for help dealing with his TBI side effects and just with his issues generally. 31 years old. He has lived in the area, in the region at least, for his entire life. And, sir, you have an opportunity to be heard by the court and say anything that you want to say to help the judge decide what would be an appropriate sentence for you at this time.
I'm just still in shock that he said guilty.
About yourself personally, for example.
What the fuck?
I don't know. I'm still kind of in shock that he said guilty. I thought that it was very obvious that this was a case of spite and on all sides.
Would you prefer Department of Correction or the Washington County Detention Center, Mr. Lothak?
I can't believe that he found him guilty. That's amazing.
Well, that's what appeals are
Did I
for.
tell you that again?
That's what appeals are for.
When evidence said otherwise?
That's what appeals are for. 18 months, both counts concurrent with credit for 112 days.
Both
on count
counts.
one.
Both counts. And the one, the dude said he didn't
And
see
if
it.
you choose to, you can file an appeal. And the appeal bond would be $50,000 to stay the sentence.
Is it $50,000 fully secured, Your Honor?
Yes, indeed, to stay the sentence.